The King of Tone is a phenomenal overdrive pedal, loved by so many you have to wait 6 years just to be able to buy one. I had one after being on the waiting list for 5 years, and I sold it, probably stupidly, after my head was turned by a bit of gear that I wanted more at the time. It wasn't my first experience with pedals based on the Marshall Bluesbreaker, but it was probably one of the best takes on that circuit. Ever since I let the King of Tone go, my pedal board's been a bit of a revolving door of different Bluesbreakers, but I think I might have finally found the one that's going to stick around for a while. Who am I kidding, right? This is the Warm Audio Throne of Tone, and it wears its inspirations like a badge of honor. Audio have become known for their on-the-nose nod to the original pedal designs, and this one is clearly, obviously, blatantly based on the Marshall Bluesbreaker. This thing is an absolute unit. It's roughly the same size as the original Bluesbreaker, just a little bit wider, but for that extra width, you get a whole extra Bluesbreaker circuit. As the Throne of Tone name suggests though, this isn't just a take on the Bluesbreaker, it's also got its target set firmly on the King of Tone. King of Tone is well known for having a bunch of internal DIT switches for configuring different settings on the pedal, as well as being able to order it with a bunch of different mods. You can get the high gain mod, a switch to choose between the different overdrive options, as well as a 4-jack mod, which allows you to separate the pedal out as if it was 2 individual pedals. With the exception of those internal DIT switches which control the different overdrive settings, these are all paid mods that you have to add on to the price of the King of Tone at the point of ordering. Many of the other takes on this circuit by other pedal brands have made some of these features more accessible, but I don't think any have gone quite as far as Warm Audio have here. Each circuit has 3 individual switches, the first of which is the voicing. In the blues mode, you've got that Bluesbreaker tone. It's a brighter, bitier overdrive tone. In the King mode, you get the King of Tone voicing. It's a darker tone with a softer attack. Both sound great, but my preference for darker tones has had me using the King mode far more. The second switch is a 3-way toggle that lets you switch between overdrive, boost, and distortion mode. The boost is the cleanest and loudest of those 3 settings, with the distortion being the dirtiest and most compressed, and the overdrive setting sitting somewhere in between the 2. The last of the 3 switches lets you toggle between the low gain mode and the high gain mode, and that high gain mode is one of those popular mods on the King of Tone. Those 3 toggle switches are then repeated for the other circuit, giving you a total of 6 toggle switches along the bottom there. You have 4 control knobs per circuit up top, 3 of which are the classic controls you would expect to find: volume, tone and gain, but Warm Audio have also added a presence knob for each circuit. The King of Tone does have an internal trim pot for presence, but again, Warm Audio are clearly going for the most tweakable Royal pedal on the market by including it as a standalone control. Unusually set all the way to the right clockwise, it's taken out of the circuit, and as you dial it back in anti-clockwise to the left, you bring in more top end and clarity. The final thing to talk about on the face of the pedal is the routing switch. This just lets you choose which side runs into the other. Honestly, I think this is kind of a weird addition considering both circuits are identical, but hey, at least they're giving you options. Keeping on the theme of squeezing absolutely every single King of Tone mod they can into this pedal, on the back you will find 4 jacks. The standard input and output are here of course, but the other 2 you'll find are set up as a effects loop, so you've got a send and a return. Why they've done that I'm not quite sure, because this is clearly to replicate that King of Tone mod where you can completely separate the 2 pedals. And this feature on the Throne of Tone has been marketed more as a put a pedal in the effects loop kind of thing, rather than separate them out and put them in individual loops in a loop switcher. But hey, it works either way. Lastly, wow, so many features in this pedal. Lastly, the voltage switch on the back of the pedal. Now, be very careful here. This isn't a switch that lets you select what supply to give the pedal. It can only take 9 volts. But what this switch will do is increase the voltage internally to 18 volts, giving you more headroom and less compression. How much is going on with this pedal, but let's move on and talk about how I've got mine set up. If you are a regular viewer of the channel, it will probably come as no surprise that I have the left side set up as my always on edge of breakup tone that I build everything else on top of. It's set to the King voicing with the overdrive mode set to overdrive and the gain mode set to low. And I've got the tone set closer to 12 o'clock than I normally would with a Bluesbreaker circuit. Volume is set to 12 o'clock, but honestly that changes just depending on how the rest of my rig is reacting or working at the time. And gain is set just past 12 o'clock. Then I've dialed in a tiny bit of presence just to bring back some brightness. The right side is set up to use stacked into the left side, and I basically never use it just on its own. Again, I'm using the King voicing, but this time it's set to the distortion mode and the high gain mode. The knobs are set pretty similar on the right side, with perhaps a tad more gain and a tad more presence. And when I stack the right side into the left side, it makes a great rhythm tone. And depending on what guitar I'm using, a really great lead tone as well. I'm also using my Boss BP1W booster preamp pedal set to the CE mode to either push the left side a little bit more to get a little bit more grit, or to push both sides stacked into a more sustaining overdrive for lead work. a little longer than it normally would to dial in a Bluesbreaker with the Throne of Tone. Perhaps it's the sheer amount of options that are available, but I did eventually, after about half an hour of tweaking, find the kind of tones that I like in the pedal. I think we have to talk about the looks, right? It's funny, I put out a video on Pedal Boards of Doom just the other week talking about the Couch Electronics Blue Whale and how I loved that they had kind of lent into the Bluesbreaker design in the chassis, as most companies kind of shy away from that look. And then of course Warm Audio come out with this pedal basically saying hold my beer. While I love that they fairly shamelessly copied the look of the original Bluesbreaker, I do think this one's a bit of a Marmite looker. You're either going to love it or hate it. I think the sheer size of this pedal and the amount of switches on the face of it make it look kind of silly, but hey, they've really lent into it and props to them. I also want to acknowledge that if this had been Behringer releasing this, or perhaps one of the Chinese companies that makes really close clones to other pedals, we'd perhaps be coming down quite hard on them about this. Previously, I thought that Warm Audio did a pretty good job of skirting around this issue by making pedals based on pedals that were long out of production. But as we know, the King of Tone, albeit really hard to get hold of, it is still in production, and the Bluesbreaker, yes, was out of production for a long time, but it was reissued by Marshall just a couple of years ago. In fact, that Marshall Bluesbreaker reissue was the first pedal review I did on this channel, but please don't watch it. That video is fucking awful. All that to say is that I think this release, as well as the Tube Squealer that they've released simultaneously, starts to push Warm Audio into an area that I think a lot of people might not be all that comfortable with. Of course, price and time is a factor, and when I put my name down for the King of Tone, there was hype around it, sure, but it was nowhere near what it was like now. And I just put my name down and kind of forgot about it until it came up and I had the opportunity to order it. If you want a King of Tone now, you've got two options. You either put your name down and wait a minimum of like 6 years at this point, or you pay a crazy amount of money on the used market, and frankly, I don't think it's worth it. Part of the draw of the King of Tone is its scarcity. I know, not everyone likes to hear that. An analog man maintained that scarcity to keep demand high. So because of that, I think I can live with myself for buying what is essentially a clone. Plus, I've already given Analog Man my money, and Marshall. Throne of Tone comes in at £219 in the UK. The Marshall reissue of the Bluesbreaker came in at £185. Let that sink in for a minute. Now sure, that price has come down at most retailers, and part of that original cost was most likely caused by the Made in the UK production, but you can't deny £219 for this pedal is pretty impressive. It's safe to say that if you want a King of Tone Bluesbreaker style pedal in this kind of dual overdrive format, you could do an awful lot worse than this pedal. It's got all of the tone and flexibility you could possibly need, and it does it at a really great price. For me, this one's going to take some beating. It will, of course, be going on my board, but you know, never say never when it comes to me and Bluesbreakers. I'm sure this time next week there'll be a completely different one taking up that space on my board. Well, I hope you enjoyed me going on and on about yet another Bluesbreaker. Look, I love the circuit and I'm always going to want to check them out on this channel. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you're not already. It really does help out. Right, let's see then. Over here is my pretty crappy video on the King of Tone. Down here is my video when I switched back from the King of Tone to the Bluesbreaker, and then over here is my video on the brown amplification protein. I've got a Bluesbreaker problem, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.